Six Ages Gaming is brought to you by GamersGauntlet.net. Check them out for all your singles, sealed product, and playmats.
Hi guys, welcome to a deck tech from Six Ages Gaming, brought to you by Gamers Gauntlet. My name is Caitlin, and I'm going to bring you the Kaguya 3.0 mid-range list. So, basic overview of this deck is we play a lot of relatively cheap dudes that maximize on the Awakening ability to get a ton of value. So it's kind of like a value-centered dudes deck. So this is Kaguya 3.0. She's a friend from another world, Kaguya, and the cornerstone behind this deck. On her unjudgmented side, she has an ability where you can spend Moon as though it was Wind, which is actually really important for this deck. In addition to that, whenever a Moon enters your field, you may draw a card. So you're going to see a couple cards throughout here that you can really maximize on that. But for the most part, on this side, it's just Moon taps for Wind, which is relevant. And then she judges for a light Moon and a colorless. And then she flips over to Kaguya, the Moonlit Savior, and has a giant block of text. The most relevant of these texts is you may still spend Moon for Wind, which is really important again. And then the second line here, whenever you awaken, you put 2/1/1 counters on this card. That's kind of pivotal for a lot of your matchups in this deck, and it's really kind of the cornerstone behind it. We're going to go a little bit more into that later when we talk about Awakening cards. But what's really important for this card is that even if the Awaken doesn't resolve, you don't have a target, as long as you pay for it, you still get the counters, which is super, super important inside of these decks. Other abilities that she has is for a Moon, you can cancel target automatic ability. That is super pivotal against a lot of different matchups and is really helpful. In addition, for a light and a colorless, you can prevent the next damage that would be dealt to this card this turn. And then she has a God Art for light, Moon, and 3. And that's rest all J resonators your opponent controls, and then recover all magic stones you control. And you may pay Awakening costs 1 Moon less this turn. So basically, it's kind of, if you have the Moon set up or the stone set up for it, it's like a free ability, and the Awakening part of it is super important. So you're gonna, a lot of your stuff you're gonna actually be able to awaken for free, and that's where her ability to put tokens on, regardless of the Awakening resolving, comes into play. So a lot of your Awakenings are gonna end up being free, and so it's like free 2/2 or 2/1/1 counters on her. All right, so let's go into our stones. So Moonbreeze Memoria are going to be kind of the cornerstone behind this. So it taps for a Moon or a light. Because of Kaguya's ability, you're also tapping for green here, which is super relevant. Kind of makes your deck work. In addition, we are playing Magic Stone of the Gusting Skies. This one is just green light, or wind light. So the reason that this card actually becomes really important is if you go deep on Kaguya on the J-Ruler side and she gets destroyed, you still have access to green or to wind, so that's really important. And then Magic Stone of the Moonlight. We chose this over any of the other Moon options, mostly because all your cards are going to be tapping for light and green. So it's just a really nice ability to get Moon in there. So this inherently just taps for green. Alright, and then we have Feasting the Holy Wind. This was really important for, there's a lot of spot removal in the format right now, and so it's really important that you can protect your dudes that matter, especially if you start pumping them and things like that. In addition, you can protect your Kaguya when she's flipped. So it's just generally a good card, just a singleton in the deck, but also important. Alright. Then we have Apollo. This card is very pivotal to this deck. The ability to give Kaguya flying and how much you can pump her is just really nuts. So on turn 3, you can have a very large Kaguya that happens to fly, so bonus. In addition, her producing Moon to spend on Awakening or Judgments or God Arts, that becomes super relevant. And then the tap banish this card to return target resonator you control to your owner's hand can also be really pivotal. There's some kind of degenerate things that you can do in regards to that. So there's just a lot of value in this card, which is kind of the theme of this deck. So now we're going to start with just the basic guys. So we have Moonbreeze Elf. This is my favorite of the mana producers for this deck. The Moon, in addition to tapping for Moon for all of your Awakening spells, it also taps for green because you're playing Kaguya, so it just kind of facilitates your deck to do kind of stupid things. Also, the fact that it can't be attacked is really relevant in your early plays against like aggressive decks. Then we move into Wind Sprite. We opted for Wind Sprite over Elvish Priest just because there's it's a little bit more of a white-centric deck, so it was more important for us to see white than it was for us to see wind, because pretty much everything that we have is going to be generating wind for us. So that was our choice there. Alright, Crescent Moon Magician. This card was originally overlooked by us and was kind of sort of like a sideboard tech sort of thing. And then in Montreal, it kind of got solidified. A lot of this deck is based off the deck in Montreal. After that deck, we just kind of decided that this needed to be a main board slot. So it's a 2/6 for 1 white, and it's a were-rabbit, irrelevant. But it awakens for a moon and a colorless. And when this card enters the field, it deals 600 damage to target rested resonator. If damage was dealt this way, put 2/1/1 counters on this card. So this card is really important against your aggressive matchups. So the red lists that are so popular right now, being able to take out like a Lancelot or something along those lines. In addition, it can take out like Elvish Priests or any other kind of mana dork. So it's actually super versatile. And the Awakening, again, like I said with Kaguya, even if you don't have a target for this, you can still pay the Awakening cost and buff your Kaguya. So that's really relevant. Lunar Ibis. This is actually the card that made me want to play this deck. So this card has so much value on it, it's kind of insane to me. So it's a 3/3 flyer for 1 white, and it awakens for 1 moon. And when this card enters your field, recover target resonator. If you do, put 2/1/1 counters on it. So because you're playing mana dorks early on, this just becomes a very quick 5/5 flyer for 1. And later on in the game, you can do pretty degenerate stuff with like Kaguya's Premonition and just kind of get maximum value. And a lot of decks actually have a relatively hard time dealing with flyers. So again, it's just a value town. Whether it's a late game play or an early game play, this card still is relevant. So that's what I like about it. Now we move into some of the more meta-y, techy pieces. So Wall of Wind is just very relevant in this deck. The fact that you can go like turn 1 Mana Dork, turn 1 Moonbreeze Elf, and then on their turn be able to tap your Moonbreeze Elf to Wall of Wind is very relevant. And we only play 3 in the deck, and there was a little bit of conversation amongst the team what was the right number for this style deck. And we settled on 3. And one of my teammates actually said it best, that there's just the fear that you're going to have a Wall of Wind that will kind of get into your opponent's brain. And so that's why we chose 3. But this deck is just super important when you're trying to control the board at all. All right. Shining Strike. So Shining Strike was a card that actually wasn't on my radar until we saw the deck from Montreal. And I actually really like it. There's a lot of value in it. So you choose 1, you rest target resonator, draw a card or rest target J resonator, or draw a card. Choose the second only if your J ruler has Kaguya in its name. So you get to do both here. So you're resting something and drawing a card. So it's really important for you to be able to control the board. It can either win you a game or it can help you eliminate threats, especially if we go into Crescent Moon Magician. So you can rest something that wasn't already rested and then play your Crescent Moon Magician and kill it. So that's really relevant. The other play here, when we talk a little bit about sideboard, I'm still teetering between mainboarding this over Portal of Truth, and I'm not sold either way. I've enjoyed both ways. The other play with Shining Strike, is you can tap something and then Kaguya's Premonition with Lunar Ibis. This is probably my favorite play. So you can Shining Strike to tap something, play a Kaguya's Premonition with Awakening, So Kaguya's Premonition is, it just inherently gives a resonator plus 200 plus 400, and for its awakening, you prevent the next damage that would be dealt to this resonator. For each 100 damage prevented, put a 100/100 counter on this. So you can tap something and then play Kaguya's Premonition on your creature, attack into whatever you tapped and hopefully kill it, and then get a bunch of counters, play a Lunar Ibis, untack it, and then a tap for a bajillion. You tap for, it just gets a little ridiculous with the amount of counters you can generate using Kaguya's Premonition. If you are not going down the J ruler path and you're going down the creature path, Kaguya's Premonition is pretty important for that path. Tsukuyomi Noble. This card is extremely important in a lot of your matchups. The first novel thing that many people don't realize about this card is that it is a moon. So when Kaguya is not flipped, you're drawing a card off of it, so it replaces itself. And her being double white is actually the reason that we chose to play Moonbreeze Elf over Elvish Priests. Her ability really shuts down a lot of the control decks because like things like Gretel and our Feasting and things like that. Players cannot activate abilities of resonators they control unless they control a moon. Very, very few decks out there are playing moon right now. So it basically just says you don't get activated abilities on dudes. So it does help slow down like Alice's World and a lot of the red decks. You can't activate Lancelot, things along those lines. Her awakening is kind of irrelevant most of the time. When this card, for a single moon, when this card enters the field, destroy target non-moon addition. If you do, it gets +2 or 2 100 counters. Doesn't happen very often, but it is super cheap. So again, playing off Kaguya, for a single moon, you get to add 2 counters to your Kaguya, which is really relevant. And she's kind of a fatty. The fact that she's a 5/7 is really helpful on the ground. Wolf in the Moonlight is the next guy we're going to spotlight here. So this card is a wind and a colorless with an awakening. When this card enters your field, put an evolution counter on it. As long as there's 1 or more evolution counters on this card, it gets +300/+300 and target attack. So basically for 3 mana, you get an 8/8 target attack. And again, when you're awakening, you're pumping your Kaguya, so value town. So this card is extremely helpful against pretty much every deck out there. So whether you're attacking Mana Dorks or if you're attacking into Alice's World for some of the things they're trying to set up, it's really just important to have that target attack. It inhibits your opponent's ability to turtle you. Then we move into Angel of Wisdom, Cherubim. So this card is pivotal right now. We're seeing a lot of Reflect Red decks out there, and even if you look into like Galapis and some of the Darkness cards, it is just really important to be able to spot control for those colors. So this guy inherently is a 5/5 flyer for white and a colorless, and then for a very cheap awakening, just a single moon, you can destroy a fire or darkness resonator. If you do, it gets +2 counters on it. So this again can take care of huge threats on the board. It's also super cheap, so even if you don't have a target, so if you're playing against a deck that isn't playing red or dark, you can still awaken it in order to get the counters on your Kaguya. So again, just a 5/5 flyer for 2 at that point that buffs your Kaguya. Super value. And then Seal of Wind and Light. So this is just a hard counter, and for its awakening, you can't chase to it. So this card is just really good against your other control matchups, or if you really need to get a threat resolved on the board, or it's a free awakening if you got art on Kaguya. So again, the super cheap awakening there makes it super relevant, and it also can ensure that whatever plan you had in store that turn is resolving. Then we have Holy Moon of the Pure Knights. This is the only edition that we're playing in the deck. And it says J resonators you control with Awakening gain +2/+2. So note on this, because there's been a lot of questions surrounding this card, you don't actually have to have awakened your card. Just as long as the creature has Awakening inherently, then it gets the buff. And the other part of it for Moon and 2 colorless, rest target J ruler. I personally haven't gone up against a lot of J ruler decks, so that hasn't been relevant. But the fact that I believe every creature that isn't a mana dork in this deck has Awakening, that makes it super relevant. So this card's awesome, and again, if Kaguya is unflipped, when this comes into play, you draw a card, so it replaces itself. Lots of value. And lastly, we're playing Arthur Pendragon. I haven't gotten to play a ton with this card. It's a new addition to us. Before this, it was Izanagi, and we were kind of deciding which one was the better choice for us. So he is 2 white and 3 colorless, and this card cannot be targeted by darkness spells or abilities, and resonators your opponents control must attack this card if able. So this card is just really good against like a lot of the resonator based decks. It's like kind of a windmill slam at the end if you get there. So it's the reason that I added this card to the deck was to protect my Kaguya when I was going in for the kill turn should something go awry. So it was kind of like my contingency plan, if you will. That was my intention behind adding this card. Still haven't decided if this is the right choice. You guys are more than welcome to chime in on that and see if you guys have any other alternates for that or how you guys have enjoyed playing with Arthur. Alright, so again, we were playing Kaguya 3.0 here, and it's a mid-range resonator aggressive deck that really just focuses on value and the awakening ability. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll see you on the next episode of 6 Sages Gaming.
Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit that like button and leave us a comment with what you thought of the video. Don't forget to subscribe to 6 Sage Gaming and check out some of the deck spotlights, duel series, and Force of Community videos that are already on the channel. We also have a Facebook and a Twitter, so feel free to find us there. Lastly, if you have a deck that you would like featured in a video, be sure to drop us a comment below. Until next time, take it easy.